now going into our interview. It is called our Becoming interview with the one and only Mrs. Adeola Fayehun. If you don't know this beautiful woman of God, she's a very beautiful woman of God. That's all I can say. The host of Keeping It Real with Adeola. Please, Ms. Fayehun, if you would like to come up to the stage, you can. And as she's doing, please put your forks down really quickly and clap your hands for her. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You got it, she got it. Very beautiful in that dress. You may come up to the chair. Would you like some help? I got you, I got you, I got you, I got you. One, two. Everybody clap for her. Look at her. She looks fantastic. All right. Along with her, we will be having our hosts, our co-anchors. They said to do ladies first. So we have the Mrs. Onyeguna. Now, this beautiful woman is our Lyft president, you know? She holds an MBA. She is dressed in purple, and she's looking great. So let's clap for Mrs. Onyeguna. Miss. Sorry, your daddy is screaming at me. It's okay. All right, and last but certainly not the least, we have Mr. Temi Oluyade. Now, this wonderful man of God, he just turned 21 on Sunday. I feel like he's lying to me, but it's okay. We thank God. He also graduated with his master's in engineering management. So we have very qualified people. So let's clap for them as they begin.
Good evening, everyone. And today we're actually doing a live segment of our Becoming episode, which is basically a career workshop where we interview various people about their careers, the lessons they've learned, and any other valuable wisdom that they'll like to share. So today is a special edition with wonderful, wonderful Ms. Adeola Fayehun. And the topic for today's discussion is life without limits. So that's what we're gonna be discussing today. And I have with me my wonderful host.
Yes, hi everyone. Good evening. My name is Temi Oluyade. And like my co-host said, we have here with us the wonderful Mrs. Adeola Fayehun, and we'll be speaking on the topic, life without limits. And not to bore you guys, we'll just jump right into, the discussion. And so here with us, we have a very, very, very successful, successful and well-to-do journalist, right? And her life depicts the topic, life without limits. And just to start off on that note, madam, how would you say your career has proven the statement, life without limits?
Wow. Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm quite shy, so...
Please.
So, I want to first of all thank you guys. I know we are not supposed to talk yet, right? Where are the MCs? But really, I'm still trying to digest the vernacular of the oblaganta of what's happening inside the vernacular of these glasses that we are all sharing here tonight. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't even know what to say. Like, we feel honored. Oh. Thank you so, so much. I'm trying not to cry. Oh. I didn't see this coming at all. But yesterday, while we were in church yesterday, one of my fathers, that is Evangelist Elvon Jarrett, was trying to invite some people to this event. He now said to them, you guys should come tomorrow. There's going to be a banquet. And my ears were like, did he say a banquet? And then I think he caught himself. So he said to them, I'm sorry, there's going to be a Bible study. He said there's going to be a Bible study tomorrow night. So I said to myself, how did we go from banquet to Bible study? Daddy is trying to hide something. So I said to Victor, I said, we may as well just look good, just in case. You know, there's the Bible study dressing, there's the banquet dressing. Yeah. So we thought we would do the banquet dressing, just in case it's actually Bible study. Thank you so, so much. We are very, very grateful to every one of you. Whoever decided to do this, whose idea was this? Whoever came up with this idea.
Our wonderful Pastor Badger.
Thank
Just
you so much,
a round
Daddy.
of applause.
May God honor you, sir. All the people that decorated, all the people that are doing DJ tonight, the MCs, we'll still do vote of thanks, but we just want to thank you. Thank you for taking out your time to be here tonight. It's a weekday, so we're really, really grateful and we are honored. Now to your question.
Yes, no rush.
Oh, God, life without limit. So when I saw that question, the first thing I did was I asked myself, do I live my life without limits? I personally don't think that I'm doing a good enough job in living life without limit, but maybe you think so. That's why you asked that question. I think that I got to understand a long time ago that this thing called life, there's no do-over. You have one shot at this thing called life. And then I think when you have been through some things in life, your focus will become more focused. Depends on whatever you go through. Also, I think when you've lost close loved ones, you know that tomorrow is not guaranteed for anybody. And you know how anything can happen at any time, so you know how precious life is. So I think for me, all those things are the reasons why I do what I do. Now, to give you further explanation, I've lost a number of close family members, like, you know, cousins and stuff, to what I call Nigerian factor. And then I think what did it for me, what broke the camel's back for me, was when I lost my dad. I was very close to my dad. We would talk every other day. Whatever you think I am today, whoever you think planted that seed was my dad. He was very, 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 very supportive of me. He was always telling me, whatever you want to do, you can do it. Like, this man will psych me up, you know. And I was a kid. I was very young, since I was young, you know. And more especially when I moved to the US. And I will speak with him on phone, and he will always tell me, whatever you want to do, you can do it. You know, he was very, very, he made me believe in myself. And we used to talk like every other day. We talk about things that my mom had no idea we talked about. I found out after he died that there were things my mom had no idea that my dad and I had talked about. It's not like I wasn't close to my mom, but I was much closer to my dad. Like, I would talk to him on the phone and be like, how's mom? And he'd be like, oh, she's here. I'd be like, okay, tell her I said hi. Bye. Not good, but that's how close I was with my dad. And then, you know, he'd been sick a number of times, and he would be okay. He'd had surgeries, he's fine. But when he actually died, it wasn't anything serious at all. And so for me, when he was taken away from me, because of Nigerian factor, which I won't go into details, that was, I think my life changed from that day onward, especially because I wasn't home, I was here. And so you just imagine, I wanted to say imagine getting a call that your dad is no more, but in my case, I didn't get a call, I didn't get anything. So I spoke with him on Monday, and he kept asking about Victor. And he would be like, how's Victor? And I'm like, oh yeah, he's fine. And we'll keep talking. And he will come back to Victor. So you and Victor, you're getting along well? I'll be like, yeah, Dad, he's fine. We're getting along well. Can we go back to what we were talking about? And then the third time he asked about Victor, I was like, Dad, why are you asking about Victor like 3 times in one conversation? And it's like nothing. I just wanted to make sure he's doing okay. So he knew, but he didn't tell me. He just wanted to know that I would be in good hands when he's gone. We weren't married at the time. But he knew of Victor. This was October. The plan was to bring Victor to meet him in December when they are celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary. We were going to Dakale for their 40th wedding anniversary. Unfortunately, we buried him that month. Anyways, so Victor knew him because Victor and I went to the same secondary school. So he knew him, picking me up, dropping me off. But my dad didn't know him, but he knew of Victor, you know. And he knew Victor was treating me well, so. But I didn't get to do the formal introduction. So that conversation went like that. I love you too, you know. But he knew. And then on Wednesday, I couldn't reach him. And finally, my uncle picked up his phone. And I'm like, why is my uncle picking up my dad's phone? Can I talk to Dad? Oh, he's fine. He can't talk right now, but you know, as soon as he can talk to you, he will talk to you. And I'm like, this is weird. Why are you picking his phone, you know? But I didn't say that to him. So went back to work, had to go to the UN that day. It was rainy. I got back to the office. This was in the evening. Apparently my dad had died since morning, and nobody had the guts to tell me because they knew how close we were. I'm sorry I'm taking your time, but I just...
No, it's okay.
Oh, I'm so happy. I don't even know what to do with myself. Thank you, guys. Anyways, I got back to the office. By now it was past midnight in Nigeria. And so my dad had died since morning. My brother was in Missouri. They had called him. He was done crying. He had contacted a bunch of my dad's friends here. And then I just got an email. I got an email from a friend of my dad's expressing her condolence for my father's passing. And I'm like, what kind of joke is this? Like, who does this person mean, you know? So then I called home again. Nobody picked up. Then I called my brother. And I'm like, so when was the last time you spoke to Dad? And he's like, oh, yeah, he's fine. I spoke with him today. He's fine. I said, Brashola, why is Sharon sending me this email? And then he said, can I talk to your supervisor? I said, you want to talk to my supervisor? And that was when I knew, and I just like collapsed and was crying. But that day, my life changed. When I got up, when I finally got up, and this, I'm answering some of the questions that you will still ask later. So, but I think you should know where I'm coming from. So when I finally got up from crying, I just got up abruptly, and that was it. I stopped crying, and everybody at work was like, uh-oh, she's about to do something crazy. And so I picked up my purse. I said, I'll see you guys later. And I could hear everybody screaming, go after her, run after her. And so they had a coworker follow me home. And I was like, you don't need to, I'm fine. But this lady is also Nigerian, and she had lost her dad as well. She's based here. She was born and raised here. And so Abby followed me. That was the longest train ride of my life. And I got home, and I said to her, this is the fridge. Feel at home, whatever you need. Ignore me, whatever you see me doing. And I started singing hymns. You know those hymns that my uncle holds? You know what I mean? Like, all those hymns that you've always known, but you don't actually know what they mean until you need them, you know. My Redeemer lives. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. All those songs. For like the next 2 hours, all I did was praise God, worshiped God, and cry. I didn't ask any questions. I just worshiped God. I wasn't crying. The tears were just coming. I couldn't stop it. And I was just worshiping God until my roommate came in. So later, I think like some days after was when I saw Abby's note. She had left me a note. I didn't know. Apparently, the whole time I was worshiping and crying and just singing those songs, she was going through her own. So since she lost her dad, she was upset with God, stopped going to church and so on. And then she saw me run to God at my darkest hour. And she wrote me a note, something like, you know, I've always known you're a Christian, but I didn't know that you're a Christian. And, you know, she wrote about how she was so mad at God when her dad died of cancer. And just to watch me run to God, she's like, I'm going back to church. And, wow. You know, she was just, you know, going through her own processing stuff. Anyways, that was the changing point in my life, knowing that, you know, you hear about death, but it's death until it actually takes someone that is so close to you. It was later that I found out that nobody wanted to tell me. Everybody was like, no, you tell her, no, you tell her. That's why no one told me until I got the condolence email. So that was 2009, and I was done with grad school at that time. I had been planning on moving back to Nigeria to start my own media company. But then when he died, I knew I couldn't stay because everything would be reminding me of him, so I had to come back. So his death, because he lived life without limit. He touched so many lives, and he was my hero. And so his death was one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure that whatever time I have, that I also make an impact with it, that I don't just leave it. I don't want to take anything with me to the grave. Whatever gift, whatever God is giving me, I don't want to take it to the grave. I want to use it all. Did I answer your question at all?
Yes, you did. You
Yes,
did. Thank you.
Thank you so much for, you know, just opening up and being very real with us, you know. That really touched my heart as well. And I just want to say my sincere condolences to you. And
Since 2009?
I know, but I was feeling it. I was really feeling it. And, you know, as somebody who's very close to my dad as well, I can't even imagine, you know, what you experienced and having to really make that pivotal decision of, okay, I'm not going to allow this to stop the plans that God has for me. Because many people can experience that and be like, you know what, God, I don't care about you anymore. You've taken somebody that was so important to me, somebody that I, you know, leaned on and relied on, and now what else do I have? But the fact that you were able to really, you know, use God as your anchor is really, really inspirational, at least for me, you know.
I wanted to say real quick that the reason that I could do that was, you know, you believe. Mm-hmm. But then there are times that your belief will be put to test.
Exactly.
Like I believe God is good.
Right.
No matter what.
Right.
Even when what I'm saying says otherwise. He's faithful. That has always been my mantra. God is faithful. Even now, even in the midst of everything happening, He's a faithful God. I don't see it. I don't feel it. I don't understand. But He's faithful.
Right.
And you know, those are the things that you remind yourself of, even with tears. If you need to cry through it, cry through it, but remind yourself He's a faithful God.
Exactly, exactly. Honestly, that's so true, you know, because this life is going to come with challenges. It's going to come with things that may seem to limit you and your future and, you know, the plans that God has for you. So the fact that you didn't allow that to even stop you and that we're even able to speak to you today is already a miracle and a blessing. And so I just want to say a big thank you for you, like, continuously trusting God and allowing Him to use you how He has, you know. And also in your career, you know, you started off by working as a reporter with Sahar and everything, and, you know, you ventured off to then be an independent journalist, which I just think is very inspirational. Again, honestly, you're just an inspiration. At this point, you're gonna hear that a lot from me because just learning so much about you, and I, did my research on you and everything. I was just like, wow. No words, but wow, And I just wanted to ask, when you make that big decision to leave such a, big company and everything and venture off on your own, were there any things that you were scared of, anything that you felt like, wow, this is going to be a limit to me, and how did you really navigate through those decisions?
So, how do I answer this? So, in a way, I'd always been an independent journalist. So I started off working at CUNY TV, Channel 75. It was a great job, good pay. I had full, health insurance, full coverage. They used to remind me that I had massage that would waste if I don't use it. But I lost that job because I had to make a decision either to go home for my dad's funeral or stay so that they could file for me to have green card. Remember, I came as an international student. But there was no way I would miss my father's funeral, even though I knew that coming back may be a challenge. Moving on after that, maybe a challenge. I decided to go for my dad's funeral. Then I came back as a foreign correspondent for the Nation newspaper in Nigeria, but also as a freelancer. So my visa at the time allowed me to freelance. When I was working at CUNY TV, I did several stories about community media, and that was when I did a story about Sahara Reporters. And that was when I met the owner of Sahara Reporters. So I did a story about him. And then when I went home for my dad's funeral and came back, I came back freelancing. I was freelancing for several media organizations, and I also had my own media company. I've always wanted to have my media company since I was in freshman year. It was one of the things that I had talked to my dad about. So I started reporting about Africans doing amazing things in New York. Africans who have restaurants, Africans who have music studio, and so on. And so the owner of Sahara saw my video works, and since we already have our contacts because I interviewed him before, he called me that he wanted to start Sahara TV. And so I worked for him setting up Sahara TV. So I had nothing to do with the Sahara Reporters website. It was the TV that I worked on. It was me, Dr. Damages, Tracy, and then later on we had more people. And so the whole time though, I was still a freelancer. I was never a staff. So I did that for 6 years. I worked at Sahara TV. I was never a full-time staff, but I did full-time, overtime, part-time, and everything you could think of to get the TV going, and the TV became really strong. We had a number of shows on the TV before I left. But then me leaving was just to continue what I've always wanted to do. The whole time I was at Sahara, even before I went to Sahara, Shore knows that I had my own media company because we were friends. We would talk before he even decided to start the Sahara TV. And so he knew about my own media company because I would ask him questions. How do you do this? How do you do that? And he would help me with my media company. And so I worked for him for 6 years and then decided to continue working on my own for myself. And the reason I'm saying this is if anyone is thinking about maybe starting a business or starting a company while you have a full-time job, you don't wait until you quit to start working on your business. You work on your business while you have your full-time job, even if it's on weekends, even if it's only late at night, you have to work on your business while you're working full-time as well. So it wasn't, the transition wasn't that hard because, like I said, I was working for myself the entire time. So while I was freelancing for Sahara, I was freelancing for The Nation newspaper in Lagos. I was freelancing for a Ghanaian magazine. I was freelancing for the UN, I forgot what they are called now. There's a number of media organizations at the UN. So I was doing all that. And then I tried to, go solo and focus solely on, instead of freelancing for everyone, just focus on this show. But I think my biggest challenge when I went solo, or let me say my biggest challenge has always been, even before I went solo, not having a green card. It really, really limited me. It's really funny now when I look back how much we went through. Victor and I, we really suffered in this country. You don't know the meaning of sufferment, really? My sister. May you never suffer. Yeah, we really, really suffered though. And people would write all kinds of comments like, oh, you're taking money from politicians, or you are being sponsored by this people, that people. And they thought I had money. Oh, you took money from Buhari and so on. And the other day, Victor was telling me, okay, next year you must work on writing a book. I'm like, where is that coming from? He's like, your story, people need to hear about it. I'm like, you mean our story? So, because someday we'll get to talk about all that we went through, all our sufferment, because of green card, and people will approach you and tell you, you can just do fake marriage and you will get your papers. Even Christians,
Wow.
with even pastors, even Nigerian pastors will tell you that. Some pastors, not all the pastors.
Right.
And then they will tell you, there's no big deal in using somebody else's social security. I had social security because I came as a student. But we would always say no, and we're not judging anybody that had to do that. Please, this is a judgment-free zone. Nobody is judging anybody. But we would always say no because there was something that God told us. Like, we knew what he told us, and he didn't say this is the way to what he promised. Why would we complicate issues for ourselves? Yes, we're already suffering. It can be worse than this, Why would I want to be dealing with Ishmael when I can just have Isaac? You know what I mean? And we didn't even know that we would be where we are today. Because just imagine, here I am criticizing government officials, like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that. Somebody would have come out and said, I beg, forget that one. No, but we help you when you were trying to get your papers. Now we work it out. Now you can't criticize everybody. You be holy. Somebody would have come out and this would have become a story, I'm not a celebrity. But that day I will become a celebrity because the story will be everywhere. And sure enough, God has been so faithful beyond all that we can ask, think, or imagine.
Amen.
When you hear that God can wipe away your tears, it is so true. So true. And when I left and went solo, we still didn't have our papers, and things were really tough. Really, really tough. But I'm glad I did. Because if I didn't, I would never be where I am today. Excuse me. My amazing husband would never be where he is today if we had... sometimes people stay somewhere where they are not fulfilled just because at least it pays the bills for now, and they are miserable. Now, I'm not saying if you are miserable, quit your job tomorrow. No. But you must have a plan and then walk towards that plan. Because for us, that was what we did. I was miserable for a long time. Nothing about who hired me or whatever. I'm just saying I was really miserable. And I remember one time, but no matter what it was, I would still get my job done. I remember one time I collapsed at work.
Wow.
Because I was, doing too much. And my husband getting the call that the ambulance had taken your wife to the hospital. It was late. It was in the evening. And I still remember him sitting next to me at the hospital that day. I can't really say what was going through his mind, but he was not happy at all. Anyways, the episode that I shot on the day that I collapsed still came out when it was supposed to come out, by the way, just so you know. And I have that picture when I was on the hospital bed and they were giving me drips and stuff. Apparently, I threw up like, after 21 times, they stopped counting.
Wow.
And then I passed out. Anyways, so I'm just trying to say that we had to have a plan. We had a plan all along. It just took forever for the plan to work. But we trusted God through it. So even though I didn't see what was ahead, when God said it was time to leave, I knew it was time to leave. Now, it wasn't like I got there and left the next day. Like I said, I was there for 6 years. I worked there for 6 years and did everything you could imagine and worked really hard. The thing is, and I think another thing that I wanted to mention is some people want to have their own business or their own company. But where they are right now, they are not giving their all. They are not giving their everything. And you are hoping to become a boss someday, and you hire people. I mean, forget about Christianity. There's also something called karma. If you go to work and you're just on social media and you're not giving your all, you should be indispensable. You know what I mean? I remember when I wanted to leave, my boss didn't want me to leave. He did not want me to leave at all. It was a very tough something. Nobody should be like, oh, he's leaving, thank God Almighty, finally. So especially if you're hoping to have your own business, your own company, please give your all, give your everything, give 200% where you are. Because someday when you have people working for you, they may do the same thing that you were doing when you were working for somebody else. So I gave my all, I gave my best. I went beyond expectations. There were times that I would have to go to work at 2 in the morning because the audio was bad. I have to get it right. My husband will follow me to work and all of that. And we lived in New Jersey. At some point, I will go from New Jersey to New York. So I gave my all, I gave my everything, never failed. Even if I'm traveling, I'm editing. You know what I mean? So, and now I'm glad I did because now I have people working for me and they go extra mile. They go extra mile for me. And I mean, call it the wool, you know him now.
Yes, thank you once again for sharing your experiences. And, earlier on, I made a statement saying that you have lived a life without limits, and you disagreed with me. But, after sharing this experience, I think you truly have lived, a life without limit because one thing that
I'm not dead.
No,
You say you have lived your life.
You're living.
You know how young I am. Where is that thing? My brother, have
Sorry,
mercy.
I'm so sorry.
I still have decades ahead of me.
Yes, decades. I'm sorry. You're currently living a life without limit because your story in itself, and I do agree with your husband, we would please be blessed if you write a book.
Why did I mention that? No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure. As the Lord leads. But I think one important thing from your story is the fact that even through your pain, right, you were able to go on to the other side because pain in itself is a limiting factor for so many people. And, pain, grief is something that if not every one of us would eventually, experience in life. And it could crush us, right? And it stops people from reaching their full potential. But you, on the other hand, were able to use that pain as, motivation to move forward and to push forward. So you are living a life without limit. I just wanted to say that. And so on a lighter note now, there were 2 pivotal moments in your career where, that really kind of set the tone for how you do, I guess, investigative and criticizative journalism, if I would say. And one was, when you interviewed the then president of Nigeria, I think in 2013, and asked, what he was doing about the Boko Haram situation. And, another one was in 2015 when I think you interviewed Mugabe and asked, when he would leave office. Right. Anybody who knows those names will know why you shouldn't ask those questions, by the way. But, those sort of powerful people at that time, right, no one dared to challenge them in, that kind of way. But you, this little young journalist lady, just had the courage, and boldness to ask those type of questions without fear. And the reason I ask that is because, we have young adults here, we have people here who have dreams, who have passions. But you see, fear is a factor that limits people also, right? And, people don't chase their dreams because of fear, either because they feel they're going to succeed, or they fear that they're going to succeed, or they fear they're going to fail. But you, on the other hand, were able to overcome that fear. If you could just please take us back to your thought process at that time, and how was it that you were able to overcome fear, and what made you have such courage to, address those people in that manner?
Thank you very much. So I was actually nice. I was quite nice.
Okay.
Let's start with President Goodluck Jonathan. I wanted to interview him like formally, like just the way it should be done. Yeah. But they kept giving me excuses as to why he's not able to do it. And so I followed him for days, and every time there would be a reason why he can't talk. And went to a banquet one time, hoping to interview him there. No luck. So I had been following him for days. And so on this particular day that I interviewed him, I went to the UN because he was there. And then when he was done, he came out, and for some weird reasons, I have no idea why, instead of him getting in his car, he decided to walk to his hotel, which was not far from the UN. It was right across. And I was like, oh, there he is, the person I've been running after. So I was actually nice. But then by that time, I was no longer nice because I'd been following you now. I know. The way journalists are treated, you guys need to understand. We are nothing. They don't always treat us right. They tell you, come back later. So I'd been following him for days. But then there he was, right there. Yes, there were security around him. There were people around him, but he was at reach. So I went after him. Now, you were asking about my thought process. I don't think this is what I've been looking for, and it's right there. Do I still need to think? What do you want me to? I've been trying to get the man. The man is there walking across the street. What do you want me to be thinking at this time? Father, he's a president, so you don't get near to him. No. I need to talk to him, and he's right there. So then I went after him, and sure enough, he's the first thing that people probably didn't see well in that video was the women that were around him. At that time, it was Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and then the petroleum minister, Alison Madueke, and then a number of women. Now, Madam Ngozi and I had an episode the day before. So when she saw me, she didn't bother me. And by episode, I meant I approached her. I said, I wanted to interview you for the Nation newspaper, ma. And she said, the Nation is this, the Nation is that. You know, the Nation is owned by Tinubu. So, and me, I wasn't working for Tinubu because I had an editor, but ultimately he owns the newspaper. And so Madam Ngozi did not like Tinubu, and so because of that, she was upset that I approached her to interview her for the Nation. So she went on and on and on about how the Nation is this, the Nation is that, and I was just staring at her. And then when she was done shouting at me, I said, so does that mean you are not doing the interview? Because all I want to know is, are you doing the interview? All these other things you are saying does not concern me. So does that mean you are not doing the interview or you are doing the interview? She looked at me, she was stunned.
She said, no, I'm not doing an interview. And let me give you an advice. If you want to go far in life, if you want, do not be associated with Sahara. Do not be associated with the nation. She was lecturing. I said, so, okay, are you doing the interview or not? She said no. So I said, thank you very much. And I left. And then she called me back. She said, you know what, I will do the interview. I said, oh, good. And she said to talk to her PA. And I turned to the PA. I said, Madam said I should talk to you, Miss. So she said, doctor. I said, I'm sorry. You are a doctor or somebody. Doctor, so Madam said to talk to you. Sure enough, doctor never got back to me. So Madam Ngozi did not want to do the interview, but she was trying to be nice. So when she now saw me going after Goodluck Jonathan, she remembered from yesterday. So the first thing she did was to slow down so that she knew what was about to happen, maybe. But the other women around Goodluck Jonathan, as soon as they saw me shouting, Mr. President, they started pulling my purse. And they were dragging me back. And I said, Mr. President, these women are pulling me. You know, like, I was wondering why they were trying to stop me. And then, of course, his security guards were also trying to stop me. And I said, he's my president. I have a right to talk to him. I think being trained in the U.S. also has a lot to do with the way I think. I think if you are in Nigeria as a journalist, maybe you don't want to do that. I don't know. But here, a subject is a subject. A source is a source. Get your information, regardless of who it is. Trump or Obama, get your story. You must file a story. You have a deadline. We don't think about the people we see. We think about deadline. Deadline is there. If you don't get your story, your boss will finish you. So you must get the story. Anyhow, every hour, by fire, by force, I needed to get my story. And I was also really upset about the fact that the Chibok girls had been kidnapped at the time. And so that was why I talked to President Goodluck Jonathan. So to answer your question about him, I wasn't thinking. I needed to talk to him, and he was right there. Now, when I interviewed, what's his name? Zimbabwean President Mugabe. Robert Mugabe, when he came to the stadium that day, I mean, when we were done and he was leaving, this was during Buhari's inauguration, I said to myself, that is Mugabe. And he had been in power for at least 30-something years by then. And I was like, and he had the guts to come to Nigeria for inauguration. Does he know what this is? Change of power. Something that doesn't happen in his own country. Meanwhile, I have Zimbabwean friends, including people that have lost loved ones, that will tell you how their parents were killed and all that because of politics, because they were outspoken. And so, but I wasn't thinking about interviewing Mugabe or asking him any questions. What happened was, as he finished that day, instead of him to get in his car inside the stadium, the same thing with Goodluck Jonathan, he decided to walk. And so he was walking, and all these journalists from all over the world, really, because we were doing inauguration, were going after him. And I had journalists saying, Mr. President, give us a smile. Give us a smile. They were trying to take his picture. And I had this holy anger rise up inside me. I was like, you see Mugabe, you are saying, give us a smile. And I went to the Lord. What is this? The man came for inauguration. That was why I ran after him. And I started saying, when are you going to step down? That is the only thing people want to know. If you see somebody that has been in power for decades, what do you want to know? When they will step down? When will you step down? Should we expect to come to Zimbabwe for inauguration as well someday? That is what everybody wants to know now. And so I guess I was just upset that people were saying, give us a smile. I'm like, if you need Mugabe smiling, you Google his pictures. You can find him smiling somewhere. But he has never answered that question about when he will step down. And so, of course, his bodyguards also started trying to harass me, but they were speaking in Shona, and they were speaking their language. And I said to him respectfully, I said, I have no idea what you just said, but I have a question. I'm just trying to ask my questions. And so I wasn't thinking. Now, there was a question that you didn't ask because you didn't know, but I'm going to answer that question for you. So what many people don't know is that I interviewed Buhari like 3 months after he became president. We didn't know that things would go south like this at the time. But then in 2017, I think, or maybe 2016, I don't know, things had started going south. He came, and I had requested for a sit-down interview with Buhari, and I requested in the name of the nation and in the name of Sahara TV. But then, and they told me that it would happen. But then I got there that day. See, I was living in New Jersey that time. For you to get to the UN by 7 a.m. in New York from New Jersey, it's not beans and rice at all, because they block the roads during the UN General Assembly. So that means I had left my home from like 5-something a.m.
Wow.
See, my sister. When you do that and then somebody is trying to talk nonsense to you, you say, do you know what time I left my house? And you are telling me nothing is going to happen here today. Now here we go there together. So then I got to the UN at 7, and the chief of staff called me into his hotel room and said to me that, do you know I can take your press pass now, and I'll tell the guys to walk you out, and you would never have access to the presidency, this, that, because you lied. You said you wanted to interview the president for the nation, but you actually work for Sahara Reporters. And then for the next 10 minutes, he was lecturing me about how I'm a liar, I'm this, that, and he went on and on and on and on. I was sitting right there, just like you. I crossed my leg, cross-legged, but I wasn't going back and forth with this. I just stayed. And I was looking at the chief of staff as he was lecturing me. That is Abba Kyari that died. So he was lecturing me. And then after he was done lecturing me, I said to him, I said, Esa, you know you could have just, this is me talking as your daughter now. No, I didn't say that to him. But I said you could have saved yourself a lot of troubles if you just asked me, did you lie about wanting to interview Buhari? And I would have explained myself. Then I said to him that I requested to interview the president for the nation and for Sahara TV. And then I showed him the text messages that I exchanged with Uncle Femi Adesina, how we went back and forth and how he promised me. And then he read the text messages. And then he didn't know. You know, Nigerian elderly people, they never say they are sorry when they know they are wrong. Do your parents say they are sorry?
No comments.
Nigerian parents don't say, I was wrong, I'm sorry. They don't say that. So, but then he realized he was wrong, but he didn't now know how to say he was sorry. He now said, so this mistake was from our side. It's from Femi Adesina. I'll make sure I talk to him. That's okay, young lady. You can go. And then I wanted to step out, and apparently he had stationed some guys by the door to carry me out. And so I walked out, and the guys were like, Esa, and he was like, no. And I was trying to figure out what was happening, but one of the guys did not get the memo. He's like, should we kick out? Should we? And then that was when I understood what was happening. They were stationed there to kick me out, and now they were looking forward to kicking me out, but I was not going anywhere. So then, when the president finally came, 3 hours after we got there, remember I said I've been out since 5 a.m. Me, I count my troubles. When they start their scan, I just have to remember what I have suffered. So 3 hours later, Buhari came with 4 governors and a number of ministers, started reading us a speech. Instead of us interviewing him individually, they said now it will be press conference. Everybody will ask questions. I said, okay, we can work with that. But then the man came, started reading speech. For the next 15 minutes, I started boiling inside. I said, what kind of nonsense is this? We have followed you for this. We know everything that you've been doing at this UN. This is the time for us to ask you questions. Now you are reading us a speech. So I was already upset that he was reading a speech. I didn't come for a speech. And then he finished the speech, and then Uncle Femi Adesina said, so now the president will leave. But before leaving, he will take pictures with the press, and then the Minister of Foreign Affairs will take your questions at 3 p.m. Come back at 3 p.m. You know how I told you how they treat us journalists? And I'm sorry that I'm telling you all these stories.
No, it's good. I'm enjoying myself.
But when they now said that, oh, he will take pictures and then he will leave, the Minister of Foreign Affairs will take our questions. I said, sir, this is supposed to be a press conference, sir. We are supposed to ask the president some questions. I didn't know that I had overstepped my boundary because suddenly all the other journalists started pulling me. Adeola, stop it. Adeola, keep quiet. And I'm wondering, what's happening here? I thought we all came here to get story, to interview the president. Why are these people pulling me and pushing me? These were fellow journalists. And all the governors and ministers were like, who is that? Who said that? I said, it's me, sir. And we are getting the president on camera refusing to answer, to take questions. And it doesn't look good on the president because we will release this video. And then the Minister of Foreign Affairs, all of them were talking to each other, while all these ones were pushing me and pulling me. And then the Minister of Foreign Affairs said, I guess the president can take some questions. In my head, I wanted to say, who is the president? Now you be the president. No, he's right here now. Why are you speaking for him? But I didn't say that out loud. So they said the president would take some questions. And they decided to select 2 people to ask questions. And the good thing is they did not select me, which was great. Because I knew I would ask my question by fire, by force. But I didn't want to be the only one asking questions. But the funny thing that happened that day, as soon as they said he would take some questions, all the camera guys, all the journalists started setting up their cameras. They were setting up, you could hear the sound of camera, like 20 cameras, being set up at the same time. And I'm like, oh my God, these people are hypocrites. So y'all wanted to ask him questions, and you were pulling me, pushing me. Now you are setting up your camera. Look at that. They wanted it too, but they were thinking. That's the problem. They were probably thinking as you were asking. I don't know what they were thinking. But I asked because that is why I came. That was what I went there for. I have to, even if they would say no, at least I will know I asked. And so the first person asked, the second person asked, and they said, that's it. I said, Mr. President, people have been lying about you. Oh. Buhari said, what are they saying? If somebody said they are lying. I said, they said you are not the one in charge, that it is your nephew, Mamandora, that is in charge. He said, no, I was the one that campaigned. I went to all the local government. He did not know he was answering my question. Yeah. He did not know he was already answering. He didn't even know I asked a question. He just wanted me to know that all those lies is just a lie. He didn't know he just did what? Answered question number 1. And then they said, that's it. Now he will take pictures. All the journalists went up to take pictures. I said, I'm not taking. I will only take with the people I came with because I needed to ask my second question. So all the journalists took, and then those of us that went from Sahara took, and I knew my chances of standing next to him increases because there were only 3 of us. And then we took the picture, and I said to him, but Mr. President, what is it that you are still doing about these Chibo girls? You promised. I didn't ask like a question. It was a conversation. I said, you promised before you came in. What are you still doing? He started answering me. And then the governor of Zamfara at that time said, you this girl, your wala is too much. And I turned to him. I said, sir, the president is talking to me. You want me to keep quiet? No, I said, it's very disrespectful. The man is... And I turned to the president. I said, Mr. President, you were saying... And then Buhari looked at me, and then he continued what he was saying. Yeah. Governor Ambode had said he wouldn't do interview before, but when he saw that, he said, I will grant you interview. So the reason I said all this, like giving you all these examples, was just to say, as far as I'm concerned, whatever it takes, get the job done. Whatever it is that you're trying to do. See, me, I don't take no for answer. If there's something that I need to do at work or even in life, even if it's last minute, we'll find a solution. And so I think when you have that in you, it's not really about thinking for you to answer your question, what was going through my mind. It's about getting that result. I don't believe in being busy. I believe in being productive. Like, let's get the end result. I'm not saying the end justifies the means, but I'll go any length to get the results.
Wow, wow. When you're talking about meeting all the... Yes, thank you so much. So much. That was a great story. I'm just enjoying myself at this point. But, hearing all these amazing stories about you meeting all these major political leaders and everything, somebody can be listening to that and be like, she got it easy. Like, she didn't have to work for all of this. Everything was just handed to her on a platter of gold. I just wanted to ask, throughout your career and the whole path that you've gone on, even to have this amazing show, Keeping It Real with Adeola, did you go through any limitations? Were there any struggles that you went through? I know you hinted at it a little bit earlier, but if you can give us some examples of maybe the stuff that you've gone through, just to encourage somebody that, some things require work. Some things you're going to face some issues in life. You're going to face some limitations, but, these are how I overcome those limitations and how God has really helped me to be where I am today.
Thank you. There was one thing I said earlier when you asked the first question, but I didn't, it's not that I didn't balance it, but I didn't finish it. I didn't finish that thought before going into something else. It was when I said that if you see whatever I'm doing today, the person that planted the seed was my dad. But then the other thing that I forgot to say was that the person that watered that seed is my husband, Victor. This man right here. So my dad believed in me more than I believed in myself. But then this man believes in me way more than I could ever believe in myself. Like, sometimes he would tell me, you need to do this. I'll be like, I can't do that. He'll be like,
you were thinking?
You can. Of course you can. And I'm just so grateful for him. And the reason that I'm saying that to answer your question is because we went through so much. When I started doing my show, I wasn't getting thumbs up. We didn't have people doing late night shows in Nigeria at that time. Right. Here, we had people doing the late night shows, making fun of politicians. But, excuse me, for the Nigerian audience, it was only Dr. Damages, my friend Dr. Damages, I don't know if you know him, that was doing that at the time. But then here I come, I'm doing not just Nigeria, but I try to do Africa. And then it so happened that I'm a woman. I had no idea. I didn't know I'm a woman until people would write in the comment section, "You're a woman, what do you know about politics?" And I swear they used to write that, and this is why you don't have a boyfriend. And nobody is going to marry you. Marriage is the ultimate. For so many Nigerians, it's quite sad. Nobody is going to marry you if you continue doing this. And they had no idea I was already married before I started doing the show. But in terms of the challenges, I think, first of all, I felt like I was just, I threw myself into something that was bigger than me. Yes, I've always been passionate about what I do. That's the only reason why I have been able to survive so much, because I'm actually very passionate about what I do. Whether you pay me, whether you don't pay me, I will still talk about the situation of things in Nigeria, because it was in me since the time I got to the US and I saw how life is in the US. The US is not heaven at all, but things work. When you turn on the lights, it actually comes on. When you get on the road, it's actually good road. And when you turn on the water, it actually runs. And it was very strange to me. Is anybody 19 here? Is there anybody here that is 19? Nobody. Nobody here is 19 years old. Okay. So if you know anybody that is 19 years old, I basically lived up to that age without knowing what stable electricity is. And that's very sad. And so from the time I was a freshman, I knew that I wanted to do something about this. So I wasn't embraced when I started doing this. And other Africans would write things like, face your own country. You have more issues happening in your country. Don't come into our own politics. And then Nigerians will say things like, why are you talking about other Africans? Just face Nigeria. They don't care about what's happening in other African countries. Also, you wanted to say something?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. I wasn't making money when I was doing the show. But I was popular, but I wasn't making money. And so people automatically think if you are popular, I didn't say I'm famous, there's a difference. You can be popular and not be famous. And so people think that you have a lot of money, and that wasn't true. While I was doing that, I kept applying for my PhD program. I wanted to do PhD in cinematography at the University of Southern California. I applied for 5 consecutive years, and they didn't take me. Now I know I don't need a PhD, but as a Nigerian, we don't want to stop until we get that PhD. You say Nigerian something. Plus, my dad had PhD, so I wanted, you're supposed to be greater than your parents. That's what they say. So I wanted to have that PhD so bad, but at the same time, I was also applying for journalism fellowships, because besides doing research, they come with some money. They may pay you $65,000 a year, $70,000 a year. I would apply to Harvard, I would apply to University of Michigan, and then I would apply to Stanford, University of Stanford. So those 3 schools, they have journalism fellowship every year, and I would apply every year. You spend maybe like 6 months on campus, and you get like $65,000, $70,000. Wow. Not a bad deal, if you ask me, knowing fully well how much I earned. And the reason I'm telling you this was every year they would say no, and then I would apply again. But God wanted me to focus on the show and just do the show, but I also wanted to survive, if you know what I mean. Things were just really, really tough. Maybe someday when we share our story, I don't know how much Victor wants me to say, but we went through so much. There was a time that we didn't have money for toilet paper. Oh. Very interesting something. There was a time we wanted to go to church, we didn't have money for train, and it was too far to walk. Anyways, back to what I was saying. So getting a journalism fellowship would have been a great relief, financially at least. So, and my husband was trying so many things as well, but nothing was, working out. So, but finally, and every year that I apply, I would need to get recommendation letters from 3 people. So imagine 3 schools, three recommendation letters. It was a lot of work, maybe 10 different essays that I would write about why they should take me. And one year like that, Harvard sent me an email that, congratulations, you're one of the finalists for our fellowship this year. And I still remember Mr. Fayehun prostrating on the floor to worship God, to thank God. And we were so happy, so excited. And then the next day, Harvard sent an email that, we're really sorry, but we made a mistake. You are not one of the finalists. And I was like, people can make mistakes, but Harvard. It's Harvard. You know what I mean? It's Harvard. It's not even MIT. He's Harvard. Yeah. How can Harvard make that kind of mistake? Harvard. And then the day after that, Harvard sent another email. We're sorry about yesterday's email. You are still part of the finalists. I was like, really, get it together. Which one is it? And then on the 4th day, Harvard sent another email. Oh, we really apologize, you're not one of the finalists. So we didn't get that fellowship. But you do know that God was the one working behind the scenes, everything. Like, I have all the qualifications to have been taken, But that wasn't what God wanted me to do. He knew if I went, I would put the show aside because it was going to be intensive, the fellowship. And if I leave the show for like 6 months and then try to come back, it may not be. And so it was like everywhere we turned that time, God was just closing every door. Every single door. He was just closing them. Wow. And I was just like, you know, those times you wonder, does God actually care? You ask a lot of questions. But there's a Bible verse that has always been my mantra, I should say. And even Victor knows, since I was a freshman, and that's Jeremiah 29:11. Yeah. I know the plans I have for you. See, God has all these things sorted out a long time. He had plans. He has plans. It was never about me. He had plans, and he knew the plans he had. And he wanted me to know since then, they are plans for good, they are not for evil. And the reason he says that is sometimes they would look like they are not plans for good. And sometimes his plans would look like they're actually plans for evil. And he's saying they are plans for good, not for evil, to give you a future and hope. He knew we would need that hope because sometimes all you had left was just hope. And so we'll always go back to that verse and to hymns, and we just had to hold on. And then keep in mind that on top of all of this, we didn't have our residency. We had media's visa, and every 2 years we would go to Canada to renew it and come back just to make sure that we're never out of status, because we don't want to ever not be in status. That could be dangerous. So, which means we can still go in and out of the country, but then you don't have your residency, and it's just so hard. And so in terms of challenges, I think with what I was doing, with what I was doing at the time, I wasn't that embraced. Also, money was tight. Also, there was no green card. Also, but we thank the Lord today. Amen. God has been faithful. He's been really faithful.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, ma'am, once again. At this point, we would like to open up the floor for questions. 2 questions. Just 2 quick questions. But while everyone or anyone who has any questions is preparing their questions, I just want to talk on how your life itself, I think, embodies what true success is in God's eye, because you always went back to this God factor that kept you going, right? Who is the source of everything, right? He's the one that has proposed everything even before we were formed. And you also spoke of how resilient you were, and you spoke of how prepared you were, right? You were always ready, regardless of the situation. And you had passion, which, I mean, everybody that is passionate about anything should have. But even you took it one step further to always be ready at any time. And I'm just saying all of that. You have questions? Okay, can we please get a mic for this young lady right here?
Thank you. I already asked this question before, but then I want you to actually tell, because from everything you said and from just knowledge about you, to say that you actually studied what you're doing right now. So for young adults or teenagers that actually have like a dream that is aside what many of our Nigerian parents want from us, and for example, like careers like media careers like the art careers, and so what will you say, because we have a vast audience here, the older generation, the younger generation. So what will you say, because you're an example of someone that is doing what they studied in college and, has a degree and is successful in that career. So what will you say to the children and also the adults and the parents that's about this clash between studying fields that are considered not bringing money and studying fields that, go get the money and then focus on the career?
Thank you. Should I answer or wait? Oh, okay. So Money is good, but money should never be a reason to do anything. Because if you're miserable doing what you're doing, um, nobody would share that misery with you, not even your parents. They may be happy, they may be telling people, my daughter is a doctor. You know how Nigerian parents can be sometimes. When I was growing up, all they wanted us to be is either a doctor, engineer, or lawyer. And so when I said I wanted to do journalism, I didn't know anybody personally that was into journalism. I just knew that I would enjoy doing this. And I remember the day I told my dad on phone, and he was like, wonderful, wonderful. That is what you want to study? I am very proud of you. Yes, you can do it, whatever you want to do. And in my head, I'm like, you know what this is? Like, it's journalism. They never have money. But if I had studied medicine or something, I would have gotten a job, early and all that, good pay. But to answer your question, what should we do and what should parents do? Number one, read Bamboozled by Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Amen. And then number two, make your parents listen to Bamboozled by Jesus. There's the audio version. And it's written by Yvonne Oji, whom I'm sure that many of you know. Yvonne is from Texas, right? Yeah. Yvonne, no, she was from Maryland, maybe Texas, I don't know. Yvonne Oji is a Nigerian lady whose parents had always wanted her to be a medical doctor. And she was supposed to be the doctor of the family. Yeah. So that when their parents get old, at least they have a child that will be able to take care of them. Not considering whether or not she wants to be a doctor. And so she did. Her undergraduate, she studied pre-med and everything that they wanted her to study. And then it was time for her to go to med school. And she was dragging her feet because she's very funny. And she knew she could make people laugh. And she knew if she found success doing it, she could make killer money doing what she enjoys. At the same time, she could make killer money being a medical doctor, but then she would be miserable. And so she said she needed some time off, went to New York, tried the career, and it didn't quite work out. She really suffered. Funny thing is, we were both in New York at the same time. We didn't know each other, and we were both suffering at the same time. And now she has found success. Me, I'm just, what I mean. But she wrote this book about having to go through that and talk to her parents about it. And the day she finally summoned the courage to ask them to give her 8 years, just give me 8 years, the amount of time it would have taken for me to go to medical school, let me try and make it doing what I want to do. And then if I don't make it, I will do what you said. And you should, of course, know what the reaction was like. It was as if somebody died. Ha! Father, of all the money that we spent on you, this is how you repay your parents. Some Nigerian parents can be dramatic. And she was crying. Everybody was crying because she doesn't want to be a doctor. And they were calling this uncle, that uncle, talk to your daughter. We don't know what has gotten in her head now that she's in America, And sure enough, she went through so much, but the word of God was always her companion as well. And today, Yvonne is so successful that I think it was last year, I don't know if it was her or her and her siblings, somebody bought a brand new Mercedes-Benz for their dad. Wow. She gave him the key, so I like to assume that she bought him a brand new Mercedes-Benz. Everything the parents had ever wanted, she's able to do way more than they wanted without being a medical doctor. In fact, she can afford to hire a medical doctor just to take care of them now as they are getting old. But guess what? She's happy. She's living her life. She's living her best life. She's fulfilled. Yvonne is going to cities, New York, Philadelphia, everywhere doing shows. She's doing movies. She's dropping different movies, series, and all that. So then she decided to write this book in order to help other African parents that box their children into. Sometimes some parents want you to do something because that's what they hoped they could have done, but they didn't have that opportunity. And sometimes it's because they believe that's the only way to success. When I was studying in Nigeria, they gave me linguistics. I don't know what I would be doing with linguistics today, maybe translating languages somewhere or something, but I would not be fulfilled. Right. So I think that parents need to learn that their children's calling is different from their own calling. Let your children live their lives and let them make their mistakes. Sometimes as African parents, we don't believe in mistakes. From the time that our kids are young, we say, you be the head, not the tail. It's true. The Bible says that. But then, if kids don't make mistakes, they don't learn. You know what I mean? And so, I listened to one woman one time. She said the biggest gift her dad gave her and her brother was the gift of failing and learning from that failure. Their dad will ask them, what did you fail in this week? I tried to do this and I failed. Good. So what lesson did you learn from that? But African parents will be like, how could you? You know all the money I've spent? You are the daughter of an immigrant. Nothing less than, hey, this is that. And so the children act like robots. They just want to be perfect in everything. And then when something doesn't work out, they think that they are not good enough. Because you have conditioned them to believe they must excel in everything. Yes, we want them to excel, but it's also good to fail because that's how you learn. Now, I'm not saying start failing your courses, but I'm saying sometimes that is how people learn. So make sure that whoever is in that situation reads that book, Bamboozled by Jesus. And I mean, Jesus is even in the title of the book. So your parents will be happy about it.
Yes, we have one more.
Thank you.
This mommy has a question. Do not bamboozle my mother.
We may not be able to take everybody's
I will answer
question.
in 1 second. Okay. I will answer mommy in 1 second. Let mommy speak, I beg.
So you have answered my question already.
Oh.
Hello. I just wanted to congratulate you, actually.
Thank you, ma.
Because I came to know about you by accident. I didn't even know you were a reporter. I actually live in Nigeria. And somebody said, oh, have you watched this funny girl, Adeola, Keeping It Real? And I said, you know all these social media things. I never even knew you were a reporter. So what I would like to know is, how did you come to put some kind of identity, I will call it, into your own kind of journalism? Because what we in Nigeria know is that journalists, you need to settle them, and I'm sure that's why you talked about people saying, Buhari has done this for her, but you have succeeded in creating an identity, a niche for yourself, not just as a reporter, but somebody that in a funny way makes her point. You understand what I mean? And without being too rude, getting to where you are going. So I just want to congratulate you, like I said, because you impressed me as not being those kind of reporters. You understand what I mean? And
Thank you, ma.
You have created a niche for yourself, and I pray that you continue to stand on Christ.
Amen.
Because I see the way you have that, we have suffered, we have suffered. But then you quoted Jeremiah 29:11, which is what we always say to our children, that the plan that God has for you, they are of good. You may not see it, at the back of that darkness, there's a silver lining. So we thank God for that. Thank you.
Thank you, mommy. I don't think I'm funny.
Really?
But, everybody's different. Everybody's created differently. There's something that makes everyone unique. There's no other person like you in this entire universe. There's no other person like me in this entire universe. Doesn't mean I'm special. It just means I'm unique. Every single person is unique. And then I think God spent extra time and overtime when he was making me. I can't let all that work go to waste. That's why when I do my news, I wanted you to watch, I wanted you to listen. Otherwise, I can just sit down like this, my brother, and just read it like that. But CNN is doing that, BBC is doing that, everybody is doing that. What will make them watch me? I have to stand out somehow. I thought I would be myself. I speak good Yoruba. I'm from the real Yoruba region. I'm a very good Yoruba speaker. I thought I would throw in some Yoruba in there. And I'm a very respectful somebody. You would never ever see me disrespect any of my fathers. That is why I always kneel down for them. I even call them my fathers. You know what? And my mothers. So that is why I thought I would, while I'm trying to talk about them so they don't get upset too. Sorry. And I thought I would start by prostrating and kneeling down for all my fathers before I now talk about them. That is why I'm never rude to anybody, never, ever, ever. And so that's why I thought I would bring everything that makes me me into what I'm doing. And I think that is why my show stands out. It was just me being me, you know. I wasn't trying to be anybody, so thank you, Mommy.
Okay, so I know we have one more question.
No, so, I'm so sorry. Due to time, we would have to close. I'm so sorry. So sorry. Yeah, we're just sorry. We're just working strictly with time. Sorry. Once again, we would like to say a huge thank you to Mrs. Adeola Fayehun. If you guys could please just, a standing ovation, give her a round of applause for sharing her experiences with us. And also, we would like to, you spoke about how your husband, helped water, that. He's still watching till, the end. And exactly. We would just like to invite your husband up and, if there's anything that you want to say to him in front of all these beautiful people, we would love to hear that.
Me? Yeah, I'm very shy. I love you.
I love you too.
How would they put us on the spotlight like that? So the one thing you should know about my husband is he's very loud. He talks too much. I don't know how he does it. You see how he's been talking since we got here. Me on the other hand, I'm a very quiet somebody. So, but I think, sometimes people mistake meekness for, how do I put it? For weakness. Thank you. When we were in secondary school and this guy was very quiet, I had sharp eyes. I had insight. I knew meekness is not a weakness. I'm just kidding, because I didn't toast him. He was the one that toasted me. No, but honestly, I am extremely grateful for Victor. He's one of the strongest people I have ever met. When we're going through so much, Victor was working online and getting paid peanuts, but he would be up by, what time? 2 a.m. and he would work until, he would work from 2 a.m. till 5 p.m. Every single day unfailingly. Unfailingly. When I say unfailingly, I mean unfailingly. Unfailingly. To get paid peanuts, because at that time, maybe like I think the most would be like $1,000 or so in a month. And he would get up at 2 a.m. and work till 5 p.m. And it doesn't mean that he's going to bed at that 5. He would stay up until I'm ready for bed, and then that's when he will go to bed. And then he will be up by 2 again. And there were times that I would cry, because I'm like, he's an architect, had a great job in Nigeria, had his own place, his own car and everything. And I told him even before we got married, I can move to Nigeria, and it's like, no, we'll go through this together. God is faithful. That he was always the voice of reasoning, and he just never gave up. And when I wanted to give up on the show, not like give up on the show, but like look for something else, I remember Victor telling me vividly, God has a plan. And this show you are doing, God wants to use it for something. Do you remember telling me that? Several times. And so, we wouldn't be where we are today without him. You know, they always say who you marry can make you or marry you. It's so true. Extremely true. Without him, we wouldn't be here today. I'm extremely grateful for you. I mean, you know it. And I love you so much.
I love you too.
He's hardworking, he's dedicated, he's determined. He may look quiet to the rest of you, but he talks a lot. It's when it's just me and him, I will hear.
Okay.
And then, if there's something that Victor won't do, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing anybody can do. He won't do it. Mommy knows.
Amen.
And he's a confirmed, I don't want to say Jesha man, but very disciplined when it comes to money and all that. Kolanwo, but he's very, very disciplined. But above all else, he's beautiful. I mean,
Wow.
And I mean beautiful inside and out. Does he look 40 to you? He doesn't look 40 to He has 6-pack, by the way. And he maintains it. And I'm just so grateful for you. I love you.
I'm grateful for you too.
Aww.
He didn't say anything.
Round of applause. Well, thank you so much to our wonderful anchors. Let's give a round of applause to them. And let us clap for the Mrs. Adeola Fayehun. Let's clap for her.